I'm a food delivery driver, and this is my stories. I should have realized something was wrong when they offered me $30 an hour to deliver food. Now, 6 months into this hellish job, I still tell myself that. But back then, staring at my maxed out bank account and the eviction notice on my apartment door, $30 an hour felt like a godsend. The only condition was that I couldn't quit for 3 years. 3 years of guaranteed pay would have solved all my financial problems. The interview was brief, really very brief. A woman named Cassandra sat across from me. The office smelled faintly of disinfectant, and there was another indescribable odor, something organic with a hint of decay. She didn't ask about my work experience or references. She simply pushed a contract onto the table and pointed to the signature area. "The pay is very good," she said in a flat, professional tone. "This job is demanding. You'll encounter some seemingly unusual situations. Follow the rules strictly and you'll be fine. Are you okay with that?" I signed. Looking back, I can't believe I signed without even reading the pay terms. On my first day at work, I arrived at the warehouse in the east of the city. It was a massive concrete building with no windows, only a steel door. The fluorescent lights inside blared, making my teeth ache. A supervisor named Marcus Bain handed me an insulated delivery bag, a company phone, and a small red booklet. "Read this," he said, tapping the booklet with his nicotine-covered fingers. "Read every word. Carry it with you at all times. Follow the instructions strictly. No improvisation, no shortcuts, no exceptions." The booklet was titled First Class Courier Delivery Procedures Manual. The cover was made of some kind of leather, unsettlingly warm to the touch, as if it had just been taken from a living creature. "This is ridiculous," I muttered, flipping through the densely packed rules, each one more outrageous than the last. Marcus grabbed my wrist. Despite the damp, stifling heat of the warehouse, his hand was icy cold. "Eric, right? I need to make this clear. This job pays so much because it's abnormal. You signed a contract. You can't quit for 3 years. So you only have two choices. Either follow the rules and keep your job, or ignore the rules. Well, I haven't seen anyone ignore the rules in 6 months. I don't know what happened to the last one." None of us know. Before I could respond, he released my wrist and walked away. For the next hour, I sat in my car reading the manual, my stomach tightening with each page. The company slogan was embossed in red on the inside cover, "We deliver for any living thing." I thought it was just a marketing gimmick. I was wrong. My first order arrived at 2:47 p.m. The company phone rang and an address appeared on the screen. St. Agnes Hospital, 13th floor, room 00. I pulled up the building information. St. Agnes Hospital had been abandoned for 15 years after a patient murdered 3 nurses and a doctor before hanging himself in the pediatric ward. This hospital only has 12 floors. I opened the brochure and found the section labeled Hospital St. Agnes, my hands trembling. The instructions were very clear. Park your car on the loading dock at the back of the building. Never use the main entrance. Enter through the service door. The door is open. If the door is locked, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Use the stairs to go to the second floor. Do not use the elevator even if it appears to be working. On the second floor, find room 666. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Find room 333. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Return to the stairwell. You will find a new staircase leading upstairs that wasn't there before. Don't be surprised. Don't look back at the corridor you just left. Go up the staircase. It will be completely dark inside. Do not use a flashlight or your phone's light. Walk steadily upwards. You might hear breathing sounds that aren't yours. Keep going. You'll feel a noticeable drop in temperature. When you see your breath condense in front of you, you're almost there. At the end of the stairs is a door marked with the number 13. Open that door. Place the delivery bag on the floor inside the threshold. The floor might feel strange under your feet, soft, warm, and slightly pulsating. This is normal. Don't investigate it. Put the bag down and leave immediately. Don't look into the room. If anything speaks to you, don't respond. Run down the stairs as quickly as possible. Once you reach the second floor, the stairs behind you will disappear. Leave the building immediately. I read the instructions 3 times, hoping to understand something. It still didn't work. The delivery bag contained only one meal, a nearly raw steak, soaking in blood. The smell made me nauseous. The St. Agnes building looked like a tombstone. The lower floors were covered in graffiti, several windows were shattered, and shards of glass glistened in the dim afternoon light. I parked my car in the loading area as instructed, and the silence became suffocating the moment I turned off the engine. No bird song, no traffic noise, nothing at all. The back door was unlocked, as expected. The rusty hinges screeched as the door opened, echoing in the empty hallway. A stench hit me. Mold, decay, and beneath it all, the smell of rotting organic matter I detected in Ms. Cassandra's office. I switched on my phone's flashlight, illuminating the darkness, and found the stairwell. Peeling paint was everywhere on the walls. As I climbed to the second floor, I swear I heard footsteps moving upstairs, the sound perfectly synchronized with mine. The second floor hallway stretched endlessly in 2 directions. The emergency exit signs flashed a sickly yellow. I first found room 666. Its door was painted black, unmarked except for a brass number that seemed to gleam in my flashlight beam. I knocked 13 times, my knuckles echoing like gunshots in the silence. After the 13th knock, I heard something moving inside, a massive object dragging itself across the floor with a wet scraping sound. 30 seconds felt like 30 hours. I stared at the timer on my phone, watching the second hand tick by, while the thing behind the door continued its slow movement, drawing ever closer. When the timer showed 30 seconds, the thing suddenly stopped moving. Room 333 was at the end of the corridor. I walked towards it only to find my footsteps no longer echoing. The sound seemed to vanish into the surrounding air, as if the hospital had swallowed all my noise. I knocked 13 times on the door of room 333. This time the response was completely different. A child's clear, bright laughter echoed from the room. Then another child's laughter joined in. Then a third. Soon dozens of children's laughter came from behind the door, their voices layered, distorted, and rising in pitch until they finally merged into a piercing scream that made my ears ring. I ran back to the stairwell as instructed, following behind without looking back, even as the laughter reverberated through the corridor like a living thing. The stairwell door slammed shut behind me, and I found myself in complete darkness. My flashlight was still on. I could see the beam cutting through the air, but it illuminated nothing. The darkness swallowed the light like a black hole. Then I saw it, the new staircase leading upwards. I could see it because it was deeper than the surrounding darkness, like a negative space in the void. I put away my phone and began to climb upwards in the darkness. From what was probably the fifth floor, the sound of breathing filled the air. My breathing was slow and rhythmic, like some enormous creature drawing air into lungs that shouldn't exist. It came from all directions, from above, below, and even from inside the walls. I continued climbing, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the takeout bag tightly. Around the 20th step, my breath began to condense into mist. The temperature plummeted. My fingers went numb. My breathing grew louder and more rapid, as if the source of the sound sensed my approach. Something brushed against my shoulder, cold and damp, feeling like fingers made of ice water. I suppressed a scream and continued climbing. A door suddenly appeared before me, marked with the number 13 in brass, emitting a faint, sickly glow. I flung it open. The floor immediately felt off. The brochure had warned me, but the reality was completely unexpected. The floor was hot, almost feverish, vibrating slightly under my feet in rhythm with my heartbeat. The touch was like stepping on bare, untreated muscle tissue. I dropped my bag and ran, afraid to look into the room, though I glimpsed something large and pale moving in the darkness outside the threshold. As I ran down the stairs, I heard wet chewing sounds from upstairs, accompanied by groans, groans that could be ecstasy or agony. I ran until I reached the back door and rushed into the loading area before stopping. The sun was setting and the city was returning to its usual hustle and bustle. The phone buzzed. Delivery confirmed. $87.50 has been deposited into your account. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trembling before finally being able to drive away. The second order that made my impression came 3 days later. At 11:47 p.m., the phone rang. Blackstone Castle, door-to-door delivery. I opened the brochure with trembling hands and found the relevant section. Head to the warehouse stables. Yes, we have horses. Choose the gray mare named Patience. She knows the way. Load the goods into the saddlebags. The castle cannot be reached by car. You must ride a horse. Follow the path behind the warehouse. It will lead you through the woods. The entire journey will take approximately 40 minutes. Do not stray from the path. You may see figures in the woods. They will call to you, and sometimes you will recognize their voices. Do not respond. Do not look directly at them. Pay attention to Patience's ears. The castle gates will open. Ride through the gates into the courtyard. The well is located in the center of the courtyard. Dismount, but do not tether Patience. She will wait for you. Approach the well. You will hear various sounds coming from it, voices, music, and laughter. These are echoes of the castle's history. They are harmless. Throw the delivery bags into the well. You will not hear the bags hitting the bottom. This is normal. There will be a response from the bottom of the well. It could be talking, singing, or screaming. Don't try to understand what it's saying. Don't look into the well. Return to Patience immediately. She will gallop back to the barn. Hold on tight and don't look back at the castle. If you see lights on in the castle windows, ride faster. The barn and stables are behind a door I hadn't noticed before, marked only by a small horseshoe. The air inside smells of hay and horses, a surprisingly normal, almost comforting scent. There are 4 horses in the stable, but only one is gray. As I approach, Patience looks at me with her deep, intelligent eyes. I open her stable door and she neighs softly. pressing her nose against my chest as if in sympathy. "You've done this before, haven't you, young lady?" I whisper. She hums, seemingly in agreement. The offering is simple, a covered pot radiating warmth and the aroma of herbs and meat. Whatever was inside, it was for someone who still preferred a hot stew. The trail began, as described in the brochure, as a narrow dirt road winding into the dense forest behind the warehouse. As soon as Padding stepped onto this path, the city lights went out, and we were surrounded by thick trees, unable to see even the stars. Patience moved with steady steps, her hooves softly pressed down on the soft earth. My gaze remained fixed on her ears, watching them turn, listening to the sounds of the surrounding forest. 10 minutes into the ride, the first sound came. "Eric?" It was my mother's voice, my mother who had died of cancer 2 years ago. "Eric, baby, where are you going? Come here. I miss you so much." My eyes welled with tears, but I kept my gaze focused on the horse's ears. The voice came from the depths of the woods to my left. "Please, Eric, don't you want to see me one last time? I'm right here. Look at me, just once." Patience pressed her ear to my head and quickened her pace to a jog. The voice followed us, growing more desperate and more urgent. "You left me to die. You weren't there when I needed you. You should at least look at me." These accusations pierced my heart like knives, because some of them were true. I had missed the last few days of her life. I hadn't returned until the very last week, stuck in another state, working a job I was going to lose anyway. Guilt gnawed at me like a living, breathing thing, but I didn't look at her. Other voices joined my mother's, my ex-girlfriend, my high school best friend who had moved away, and my father, whom I hadn't heard from in 5 years. They were all calling to me from the darkness, some pleading, some accusing, and some just sobbing in pain. Patience started to jog, and I gripped the reins tightly, burying my face in her mane, trying to block out the voices. I glimpsed figures moving through the woods, their gait unsteady, their limbs clumsy and their faces slightly elongated. Thank goodness the forest had finally come to an end, and we had reached a clearing. The castle stood before us like a decayed tooth. 3 of its 4 towers had collapsed, and ivy completely covered the walls, as if the forest were slowly swallowing it up. But as the brochure had said, the gates were open, the rusty iron doors twisted into various shapes. We entered the courtyard, our pace gradually slowing. Moonlight filled the courtyard, bright enough to cast clear shadows. The well, a circular stone structure with an iron roof, stood in the center of the courtyard. I dismounted, my legs trembling, and carried the delivery bag toward the well. Before I even reached it, sounds rang out. I was already halfway there. First came laughter, the elegant, clear laughter of nobles at a banquet. Then came music, a string quartet playing a complex Baroque piece. People spoke languages I couldn't understand, their voices mingling and overlapping. The sound of horses' hooves on pebbles, the cries of children, women singing lullabies, men shouting commands, the clanging of swords, someone praying in Latin. It was as if all the sounds that had ever occurred in this place were simultaneously emanating from the well, compressed, superimposed, merging into a chaotic symphony. It should have been unbearable, but for some reason it wasn't. It was almost beautiful. I walked to the well and held the delivery bag to the opening. The well was pitch black, as if a void was pulling at my eyes, forcing me to look deeper. I released the bag. There was no sound of the bag falling to the bottom. It was as if the echoes of history were playing back, growing louder and more frantic. Then a voice answered me, a voice from the abyss speaking an ancient language. It wasn't speaking to me, it was speaking through me, and I could feel its sound vibrating in the soft tissues of my bones, teeth, and internal organs. Its meaning, it passed through my consciousness, reaching a primal part of my brain, a place that understands hunger, darkness, and the patience of those who live forever in the abyss. It was saying thank you. I ran back to Patience, and out of pure fear I smoothly mounted her. She needed no urging, turned and charged toward the gate, her hooves sparking on the cobblestones. As we galloped through the gate, I made a mistake. I glanced back. Every window in the castle was filled with light. Candles, torches, the whole building radiated a warm glow, brimming with life and celebration. I could see shadows moving behind the glass. People were dancing and dining. In the highest window of the last remaining tower, a figure watched us. It was incredibly tall, and even from this distance I could see its head was oddly shaped. Too narrow, too long, and wearing something on its head like antlers. It raised an arm as if waving or perhaps offering a blessing. Patience galloped faster than any horse I'd ever seen before, the forest on either side fading into a blur of darkness. We only slowed down when we saw the lights of a warehouse ahead. I'd just dismounted when my phone buzzed. $134.50 has been deposited into your account. Before the theater delivery, I'd done 2 months of normal deliveries, or rather the normality of the job. An order was left on a doorstep. No one answered, but the door opened automatically 30 seconds after I left. A midnight delivery to a cemetery placed on a specific tombstone with singing in the distance. A package was handed to a taxi driver who didn't say a word. I looked at him for 5 seconds and couldn't remember what he looked like. But all of that was manageable. Terrifying, but manageable. The theater delivery was different. 2:17 a.m. Phone buzzing. Theater District Subway Station, Platform 7. The section about this delivery in the brochure is longer and more detailed than the others, with appendices and footnotes in different handwriting, as if several deliverymen have added warnings over the years. The Theater District Subway Station has 6 platforms. Platform 7 is only open between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. You must complete the delivery within this time frame. Enter through the main entrance on 7th Street. Station staff will not assist you. This is normal. Purchase a token from the machine. Tokens are required. Debit cards are not accepted. The machine only accepts cash. Insert exactly 2x75. Go down to Platform 1, walk to the end, which is at the tunnel entrance. There is a door marked Employee Only, Platform 7. This door will be open during delivery hours. The stairs behind this door are deeper than usual. Count the steps. If there are more than 127, you've gone too far. Return to the top and start again. Platform 7 is empty. It is always empty. If you see anyone else on Platform 7, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Do not deliver goods. Walk to the center of the platform. You will see a bench that is different from the other station furniture. It is older, ornately decorated, made of dark wood, and has brass fittings. Place your delivery items on this bench. A train will arrive in 3 minutes. This train is not on the timetable and is not a regular subway train. There may be passengers in the carriage. Do not make eye contact with anyone in the carriage. If they talk to you or gesture to you, do not respond. The doors will not open. This is intentional. Passengers will take packages from the bench in some unknown way. You do not need to know the specific method. After the train departs, wait a full 60 seconds, then return the way you came. Do not run. Running will attract attention. Delivery man JM's tip. Trains sometimes stop at the wrong spot. If the door coincides with where you are standing, close your eyes and count to 30. Don't open your eyes no matter what you hear or feel. Delivery man DR's tip. I heard someone calling my name in the train car. I accidentally responded. 3 days later, I heard the same sound coming from my closet. I moved. I suggest you strictly follow the rules. The package was a white cardboard box sealed with red tape. It was heavier than it looked, and the contents made a wet, slippery sound when I picked it up. The box was cold, colder than a warehouse freezer. At this time, the subway station was deserted, save for the buzzing and flashing fluorescent lights. The ticket booth attendant was an old man reading a newspaper, and as the pamphlet said, his gaze never left the paper as I passed. The automatic ticket machine mechanically swallowed my banknotes and spat out a brass token that looked like it came from another era. The token bore an unfamiliar subway system logo. The metal was warm in my palm. Platform 1 was deserted, the tiles gleaming under the glaring lights. I walked towards the end of the tunnel, my footsteps echoing, each echo accompanied by a new sound, another set of footsteps, slightly out of sync with mine, coming from a direction I couldn't discern. A door marked Employees Only Platform 7 stood out starkly against the concrete and steel of the station, for it was made of wood. The wood was a deep, almost black color, carved with symbols that were almost unbearable to look at. Behind the door, a spiral staircase descended, the walls on either side pressed tightly against the floor. I counted each step aloud, my voice weak, swallowed by the enclosed space. 27, 28, 29? The air grew colder and more oppressive, carrying the smell of metal and electricity. 63, 64, 65? I heard music coming from above or below. I thought jazz, the kind played in underground bars during Prohibition. 99, 100, 101. My phone died at step 112, plunging me into darkness, with only the intermittent flashing of the emergency light. 123, 124, 125, 126, 127. The bottom door was modern, like other emergency exits in the subway system. I pushed it open. Something was off about Platform 7, but it wasn't immediately obvious. Its dimensions were wrong. Too long and too narrow, the ceiling too high. The color of the tiles on the walls was wrong too, a deep burgundy that no urban planner would approve. And it was eerily silent, as if the platform were in a mysterious space where sound couldn't travel normally. The bench was in the center of the platform, just as described. It had a rustic beauty like furniture in a mansion, not a subway station. The brass fittings gleamed, and the wood was intricately carved with patterns. I thought they resembled vines, or perhaps snakes. I placed the white box on the bench and stepped back. The wait was agonizing. My watch showed 2:34 a.m. I still had time, plenty of time before the delivery deadline, but every second felt like an hour. The silence was oppressive, making my eardrums ache. I began to perceive my breathing and heartbeat with unusual clarity. At 2:37 a.m., I felt it first, then heard it, a vibration in the air, the change in air pressure making my ears ring. Then came the sound, the distinctive rumble of an approaching train. The train emerging from the tunnel wasn't modern. It was old, incredibly old, like a relic from the early days of the subway. The carriages were made of dark wood and brass, bathed in warm yellow light. Through the windows, I could see the passengers. My blood froze instantly. The passengers were dressed in clothing from different eras. A woman wore a 1920s-style modern dress. A man wore a Victorian-era suit. A child wore tattered clothes from the Great Depression. A soldier wore a World War II uniform. They sat or stood, swaying slightly with the train's movement, each staring intently at me. Something was off about their expressions. Not obviously, not in a way I could articulate, but something felt off. Their proportions, their expressions, even the rhythm of their blinks. The train slowed, slower and slower. For a moment, I even thought it would stop right in front of me, the doors right in front of me. Just as I was about to cover my eyes, the train suddenly moved forward 3 feet and stopped. The doors didn't open. But passengers by the windows pressed their hands against the glass, their handprints condensing into fog on the cold surface. Some laughed. Others stared intently out the window, their gazes focused and heavy. The feeling sent chills down my spine. In the car closest to me, a woman mouthed something to me. I couldn't hear her through the glass, but I could read her lips. "Can you hear me?" I turned my face away, my gaze fixed on the floor, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Something was knocking on the window, a rapid, urgent knock as if trying to get my attention. I didn't turn around. More knocking came from several windows, the intermittent rhythm sounding almost like Morse code. Then came voices, somewhat muffled through the glass but still clearly audible, all at once. "Look at us. We just want to talk. Don't be so rude. Eric? Eric, is that you?" The last voice made me shudder. It sounded like my mother's voice again, but distorted, as if coming from a broken speaker. "Eric, darling, I'm right here. I've been waiting for you. Look at me. Just this once, please." I tried not to look up, my eyes burning. I silently counted down the seconds, trying to block out the sounds. The white box on the bench was gone. I didn't see it disappear. I didn't hear it. It was just gone. The sound stopped abruptly. The train jerked off, slowly at first, then gradually accelerating until it disappeared into the tunnel on the other side of the platform. The rumble faded into the distance, and I was once again alone in absolute silence. I counted to 60, each number feeling like a small victory. Then I walked. Not running, though my instincts screamed at me to sprint back to the door, up the 127 steps, across the station, and into the city night, where the air had never tasted so sweet. I had just reached the ground when my phone rang. 203.75 has been deposited into your account. I probably have one or two more stories to tell, but more orders have come in, so I'll be back. I know I haven't updated in over a year. Yeah, I know. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. They even got me a cake for my first work anniversary. Okay, I think I have some excuses. Around my first year on the job, I started having hallucinations, moving, irregular shadows in my peripheral vision, faces in wallpaper patterns, and figures standing in doorways, but they vanished when I looked directly at them. I recognized these signs. I've been battling them since I was 19, bipolar 2 disorder with mixed episodes. That's why updates are so hard, especially since this job is really demanding. Anyway, this is the fourth story. I opened the manual and found the entry. My heart sank when I saw how brief it was. Those complicated delivery assignments had pages of rules and step-by-step instructions, and if followed strictly, they'd be safe. Short instructions were different. Short instructions meant almost no one could help. Deliver to 1247 Carpenter Street between 7 and 8 p.m. Ring the doorbell. Wait. An elderly man will open the door. He will invite you in. You must accept. He will pour you tea. Accept the tea, but don't drink it. He will tell you a story. Listen to it completely without interrupting. After the story, give him the item. He will give you something in return. Accept it gladly. Leave through the front door. Don't look back at the house. Delivery man MK's note. The story I heard was different each time. The one I heard was about a woman who drowned her child. I still dream about it. Delivery man PL's message. He gave me a photo. The person in the photo is me, taken from my own apartment. I don't know when the photo was taken. I've changed all the locks. I've started sleeping with the lights on. Delivery man TH's message. Keep whatever he gives you. I tried throwing mine away, but it came back. It always comes back. The package was a glass container containing a small plant I didn't recognize. When I wasn't looking at it directly, the plant moved. I could see it moving out of the corner of my eye, its leaves spreading out like fingers. It was actually a familiar neighborhood, a beautiful area with well-maintained houses and neatly trimmed lawns. The house itself was a simple two-story Victorian building, painted light blue with white accents. It didn't look like a dangerous place at all. It looked like the kind of place where Grandma would bake cookies and knit blankets. At 7:26 p.m., I rang the doorbell. The elderly man who answered was exactly as I expected. White hair, kind eyes, wearing a cardigan and slippers. He had a genuine smile on his face. "Ah, the delivery has arrived. Please come in, please come in. I've been waiting for you." His voice was gentle and kind, like that of a kind grandfather. I entered the house and he gently closed the door. The house was spotless. Every surface was covered with a tablecloth. Family photos hung on the walls. The children, the grandchildren, and a woman who must have been his wife. The air was filled with the scent of lemon polish and aromatherapy. An old-fashioned grandfather clock in the corner ticked softly. "Sit, sit," he said, gesturing to a patterned sofa. "I'll go make some tea." He went into the kitchen and I sat down, placing the glass container on my lap. The plant pressed its leaves against the glass and I swore that something in the house was watching me, something that wasn't quite an eye. The old man returned with a tea set, porcelain cups, a matching teapot, and a bowl of sugar cubes. He carefully poured 2 cups of tea, as if he had done it countless times before. "Earl Grey," he said, handing me a cup. A touch of lavender, my own blend. The aroma was enticing. I took the cup but didn't bring it to my lips. He sat down in the armchair opposite me, took a sip, and smiled. "I think I should tell you the story now. That's how it is, isn't it?" I nodded, hesitant to speak. "It's a story," he began, his voice deepening and becoming magnetic, "about a delivery man who broke the rules." A chill ran down my spine. "Actually, he was a lot like you. Young, desperate for money, and willing to ignore the oddities of the job. At first, he did very well, meticulously following every instruction. But, fear is like acid, slowly eroding you until you just want to escape." The old man's gaze never left me. His eyes were no longer friendly. On his 31st day of work, he received a delivery order to an apartment building. It was simple. Just placed the food on the door marked with a red X, but he kept having nightmares, seeing strange things. When he arrived at the building, he found 3 doors marked with red X's. The ticking of the old-fashioned clock was deafening. The brochure said to call the dispatch center if anything seemed amiss, but he was too tired, really too tired, and he didn't want to wait. So he just went with his gut and chose the middle door. He put the food down, turned around, and left. The old man took another sip of tea. The problem is that order wasn't for a real person. It was for something else, and something with specific delivery requirements. He delivered it to the wrong door. Mistakes always have consequences. I wanted to ask the delivery man what happened to him, but the rules said I couldn't disturb him. 3 days later, they found his car outside the apartment building. The engine was still running, the door was open, the delivery bag was on the front seat, empty, but the delivery man was still missing. Although people in the building sometimes said they heard knocking coming from the walls, the rapid knocking sounded like someone trapped trying to escape. The old man put down his teacup and smiled again, this time with an ancient and eerie quality. The moral of this story is, rules are not arbitrarily made, nor are they suggestions, much less principles that can be interpreted arbitrarily. He explained, like my grandfather explaining a fairy tale. He held out his hand. "Please give me the thing." My hands trembled as I handed him the glass container. He took it and placed it on the table beside him. The plant inside immediately began to climb up the glass wall, its form now clearly visible. "Now, as is customary, I'll give you a gift." He took a small object wrapped in white cloth from the pocket of his cardigan. It was heavy and icy cold when it was handed to me. I slowly unwrapped it. Inside was an old-fashioned silver pocket watch, intricately engraved. But upon opening it, instead of the watch face, a photograph came into view. It was of me, sleeping in my apartment. It was taken from the perspective of someone standing at the foot of my bed, looking down at me. The photograph had been taken the previous night. "A reminder," the old man said kindly, "that you are never truly alone." I stood, my legs barely supporting my weight. "Thank you for the tea," I said in a weak whisper. "You're welcome," he said. "Have a safe trip, Eric." I walked toward the front door, the pocket watch burning hot in my pocket. I didn't look back at the house, though I could feel him watching me the whole way until I reached my car. My phone buzzed. $156.25 has been deposited into your account. That night I didn't sleep a wink. I sat in the living room, lights on, staring at the bedroom doorway, wondering if something was standing there, lurking out of sight, spying on me like a photographer spying on me as I slept. The pocket watch was on my coffee table. I tried putting it in the drawer, but an hour later it was back on the table. I tried leaving it in the car. When I came back from the bathroom, it was on the kitchen counter. It always comes back. Then I wanted to tell you a nice story to give myself a break while typing. After all, this job isn't all about cannibalistic monsters. At 3:33 p.m., the phone rang. I almost didn't want to look, but the contract bound me like chains. The address was just 2 words: garden, no street, no house number. Just those 2 words. When I opened the booklet and found that entry, it was different from the others. The handwriting was older and more refined, as if someone had carefully written every letter. When you receive the package sent to the garden, you've received a precious gift. Cherish this good fortune. Drive north on Highway 888 until you see a dirt road marked with white stones. There are no road signs. You'll recognize it when you see it. Drive 7.7 miles along this road. Even if the distance seems off, your odometer reading will still be accurate. Park at the end of the road. Walk through the gate. The gate will be open. The path in the garden is obvious. Follow the path to the center of the garden where you'll see someone tending to the plants. This person will talk to you. Listen carefully. They may know something about you that others don't. Important, they may offer you something: food, drinks, rest, comfort, or even answers. You can accept food and drinks. You can rest if invited. You can listen for answers. However, you must absolutely not accept any physical goods or gifts, nor touch anything offered to you, except for food or drink offered directly to you. This rule is absolutely valid. Whatever is offered, no matter how much you want it, you must refuse any physical goods except food and drink. You will know after the meeting. Return the way you came. Messenger AM's message: whatever you do, follow Rule 7. My previous messengers did not follow it. They found his car at the end of the dirt road, the driver's side door open, and the engine still running. They never found him. But sometimes delivery requests still come from the garden, and the customer's name is his. This delivery was special, a simple brown paper bag like the kind for lunch. Inside were freshly baked bread, still warm, and a bottle of unlabeled wine. The aroma of the bread was intoxicating. The fragrance of yeast was flawless. Highway 888 stretched north from the city, through the suburbs, and into rolling farmland. It took me 40 minutes to see it, a dirt road paved with smooth, rounded white pebbles like eggs. There were no signs or markers indicating where it led, but I was absolutely certain this was it. The road wound its way through fields of wildflowers that shouldn't be blooming in late autumn. Their colors were too vibrant, too perfect, blues, purples, and reds, as if radiating an inner glow. My odometer ticked up: 1.2 miles, 3.5 miles, 5.8 miles, and 7.7 miles. At the end of the road was a gate made of living wood, trees that had grown into an archway, their branches intertwined and lush. Through the archway I saw a garden. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. White gravel paths meandered through flower beds laden with fruit, past fruit-laden trees, and through vine-covered gazebos. The air was filled with the scents of jasmine and honeysuckle and a unique fragrance that reminded me of childhood summers, Christmas mornings, and all my fondest memories. The path led me deeper into the garden, past roses that seemed to whisper, telling me something in a language I could almost understand, and past apple trees where a gentle breeze rustled the branches, creating a crisp, bell-like sound. Everything here was brimming with life. Unlike ordinary plants, they were sentient. They watched, and they welcomed me warmly. In the center of the garden was an open space with a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. Standing there, tending to a cluster of white lilies, was a man. He was ordinary in every way, of medium height, with brown hair, wearing work clothes, and with his fingernails stained with dirt and sawdust. But when he turned to look at me, his eyes were ancient and kind, filled with a sorrow that seemed to encompass the entirety of human history. "Eric," he said, his voice like a gentle stream, like a breeze rustling through leaves, like all the comforting sounds in the world. "It's a pleasure to have you here. Please sit down. You've brought bread and wine, which is very kind of you. Would you like to share with me?" I sat there, speechless. He gently took the bag from my hands, broke open the bread, and poured the wine into 2 wooden glasses that had appeared on the table. "Eat," he said. "Drink. You're safe here." The bread tasted like every delicious meal I'd ever had. The wine was just right, warming my body and soul. "You have many questions," he said gently. "Everyone who comes here has questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but I will do my best." "Who are you?" I asked softly. He smiled. "People have called me by many names: gardener, shepherd, teacher, friend. You can call me anything that makes you feel comfortable. This is... I am... dead? No. This is a place between 2 worlds. It's the end of all roads and the beginning of all paths. Every messenger eventually comes here, if they live long enough. It's a blessing." He took a sip of his drink and looked at me with those ancient eyes. "By the way, your mother was good. She wanted you to know. She understood why you couldn't be with her until the end. The living have obligations to the living, and she never blamed you, not even for a moment." My throat tightened and tears welled in my eyes. "And Cookie," he continued, and I gasped. Cookie, my dog. That golden retriever I got on my 5th birthday slept at the foot of my bed every night until I was 13, when cancer took its life. It was my best friend from childhood, accompanying me through the difficult times of my parents' divorce and through every tough moment of my growing up. "It's here too," the man said softly. "Would you like to see it?" As if summoned, I heard the rustling of paws on the gravel and the eager panting of a happy animal. Then Cookie skipped into the clearing, looking exactly as I remembered, young, healthy, and full of energy. He ran straight to me, tail wagging wildly, his whole body swaying. I could see every detail of him: the white markings on his chest, the darker fur around his ears, and those warm brown eyes I had gazed into countless times. "You can pet him if you want," the man said. "He misses you." I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, longing to feel that soft fur again, to hear again the satisfied sigh he made when I scratched his ear. Then I stopped. The little booklet. Rule 7. You may not touch anything handed to you unless it is food or drink handed to you directly. My hand hovered in the air just inches from the Cookie's head. He looked up at me with those trusting eyes, his tail still wagging, not understanding why I wouldn't touch him. "I can't," I choked out. "The rules. I can't." The man looked at me, his eyes unreadable. "You understand the rules exist with the point of being here?" I shook my head, tears streaming down my cheeks. Cookie whimpered softly, seemingly confused by my rejection. "Because this place is real, Eric. The garden is real, Cookie is real, and your mother is real, somewhere deep within the garden. But you don't belong here yet. You're still alive, still bound to the world of flesh and time. If you touch anything here, you establish a connection. A debt, and debts must be repaid." He stood up, Cookie sitting at his feet, still looking at me hopefully. He walked to where I was sitting and placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm and real. "Your choice was wise. Even heartbroken, you followed the rules. That takes strength most people don't possess." He smiled. "You'll get through these 3 years, Eric. Not everyone can do it, but you certainly can." Cookie stood up, walked back to me, and pressed his body against my leg. I struggled to restrain myself from touching it. "I have to go," I choked out. "I know, but before you go..." He pulled a small leather collar with a brass tag from his pocket. Cookie's collar. "I can't give this to you, but I can give you a tip." He whistled, Cookie barked, and then turned and ran back into the woods along the path. I stumbled through the garden, tears drying on my cheeks, the taste of bread and wine still lingering on my tongue. The door closed softly behind me. No phone notification, no payment received. I didn't know what my tip was. I returned home exhausted and slept soundly for the first time in days. Until 3 days later, I sat in my apartment staring blankly at my ever-present pocket watch when I heard scratching at the door. I cautiously opened the door, my heart pounding with anxiety, fearing some delivery man might have brought something terrifying. After all, the last time had given me quite a fright. But standing in the doorway was a dog, a young, healthy golden retriever about 4 months old. It had a white stripe down its back. The fur around its chest and ears was darker. It raised its head, looking at me with warm brown eyes, wagging its tail. It looked exactly like Cookie. A collar hung around its neck with a note attached, a grateful customer's tip. Ugh, this dog, I'll still call him Cookie, made me feel better for about 2 weeks. Then the dreams started getting worse. Not the delivery nightmares. I'd learned to isolate those nightmares, to archive them deep in my brain where I wouldn't touch them during the day. No, these dreams were different. They were fragmented and kaleidoscopic, with me standing in several places simultaneously, time shifting back and forth, hearing every thought of everyone I'd ever met, like overlapping radio stations playing in my head. I'd been managing my condition with medication and psychotherapy, but lately, the line between manic lucidity and depressive fog was becoming increasingly blurred. So I made a decision: Roy Dorman, my father. I hadn't spoken to him in 11 years. The last time I called him was because my mother died. I was going to ask him what he was doing, or at least what he'd done wrong. I went to him. His address was in a once prosperous part of the city. The apartment buildings were dilapidated, the windows of the corner shops were fitted with iron bars, and people in such places kept to themselves, each with their own secrets they didn't want others to discover. Let me preface this by saying my relationship with him wasn't good. He wasn't very sober even before his divorce. He drank, and then, to me, 11 years old, he was just a presence, no longer my father. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, the stairwell reeking of cigarette smoke and mildew. I stood outside his door for a full 5 minutes before finally knocking. The person who opened the door looked decades older than he actually was. Roy Dorman was 53 but looked 70. His hair was mostly gray, his face was wrinkled, and his hands trembled slightly, but I couldn't tell if it was from age, from the side effects of medication, or from withdrawal. "Eric?" His voice was hoarse. "My God, Eric?" "Hi, Dad." We looked at each other across the threshold, 11 years of silence filling the space between us. Do you want to come in?" "Sorry, the place is a mess. I didn't expect it." "I just wanted to talk," I said. "Can we talk?" He nodded and stepped aside. The apartment was small and cluttered, but not dirty. Newspapers were piled in the corner. A horse race was playing on the television, the volume muted. The walls were covered in sticky notes, and I realized then that they were reminders of things he needed to remember. Take his medication, pay rent, eat lunch. I recognized the system. I had something similar in my own apartment, except my reminders were to check the manual, follow the rules, and live well. "You look good," he said, though we both knew it was a lie. I was thin, had dark circles under my eyes, and hadn't had a haircut in months. Anyway, better than me. I've been working, I said. Actually, I'm doing pretty well. A strange look crossed his face. What kind of work? Delivering takeout, food delivery, the pay, not very unusual, but there are some conditions. He was silent for a long time, then went to his kitchenette and poured 2 cups of coffee from a coffee pot that looked like it had been sitting there for hours. The coffee was bitter and burnt, but I drank it anyway. I used to deliver food, he finally spoke. After your mother and I divorced, after I messed up all my decent jobs because of those bastards, because of gambling, because of all that. He slumped heavily into an armchair held together with duct tape. What was the company called back then? But the job was the same. Unfamiliar place, unfamiliar customers. Those rules only make sense when they're broken. My coffee cup froze in midair. You worked for them? 3 years, like what you're about to do. Earned enough to pay off debts, settle down and start over. He laughed, but the laughter was bitter. Of course, after 5 years I gambled away most of my money, but it was all my fault. It had nothing to do with the job. The contract, he continued, taking a sip of coffee. You can't talk about it. You can't talk to people who haven't worked there. Remember, those words vanish the moment they leave your mouth. But your eyes. I looked around the room, checking for anything that shouldn't be there. He took another sip of coffee. You work for them now, so we can talk. I put down my cup, my hand trembling slightly. Who's your manager? A guy named Marcus, a weirdo, knows things he shouldn't know, laughs like a cat that's eaten a canary. Roy's eyes became vacant. Near the end of my 3 years, I asked him how long he'd been in this business. You know what he said? I shook my head. He said he'd been managing couriers since the days of the carriages. He said he'd witnessed the rise and fall of empires. He said for people like him, times were different. Those who made certain choices accepted certain promotions. The apartment suddenly felt small and cold. Marcus is still there, I whispered. He's still my manager. Roy nodded slowly. As far as I know, he's been there for at least 50 years, maybe longer. He leaned forward. Eric, listen to me. This job, it's intoxicating, but it also makes us vulnerable. Vulnerable to what? Like them, staying after 3 years, accepting promotions, benefits, endless work. He grabbed my wrist, unusually firmly. Promise me one thing. Promise me that after 3 years you'll leave. Take your money, run, and never look back. Dad, promise me, Eric. The 11 years I've spent with you have been because I couldn't control myself, because I let my inner demons prevail. Don't let those inner demons prevail either. 3 years, not a day more. I gently pulled his hand away. I promise. We talked for another hour. He told me stories of his deliveries, of a mansion where each room corresponded to a different season, of a lighthouse that guided ships that sank a century ago, and of a library where books rewrote themselves as you read. These stories might have sounded absurd to others, but I understood them completely. As I left, he hugged me and I could feel how vulnerable he had become. That was about a year and a half ago when I decided to start taking medication. Cookies were waiting for me in the car. As I drove away, I saw my father standing in the apartment window through the rearview mirror watching me leave. The pocket watch in my pocket buzzed. This couldn't be. It was just a pocket watch, but now everything was more than just a pocket watch. I opened it and found the photograph had changed. The photograph showed my father and me standing in his apartment, but now there was a third figure standing behind us. He was tall, his face blurred. I found Marcus in the warehouse office. He was flipping through some documents that looked like they were written in an ancient language that predates writing. As I walked in, he looked up, a wide, overly bright smile revealing too many teeth. This time he wasn't pretending to be an ordinary man. "Eric, how can I help?" I closed the door behind me and sat down without waiting for an invitation. "My father used to work for you." "Ah, Roy Dorman. Yes, I remember him. He was a good messenger, mostly following the rules. He had some inner demons, but who doesn't?" Marcus put down his pen. I noticed the pen looked like it was made of bone. "You've seen him. How come you—" I stopped. I wanted to say, "How come you've lived so long?" What a stupid question. "He said you've been in this business a long time." "Really?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "And what do you think, Eric?" "I think the manual says I shouldn't say the word resign to you, but it doesn't say I can't talk about work, talk about how long you've been here, talk about what kind of person you are." Marcus's smile widened. "A keen eye. You, the Dorman family, have always been clever. You know, your great-uncle also worked for us. That was in 1923. He held on for 2 years and 3 months, then tried to escape. Of course, we eventually found him. The contract was valid." I felt a chill. What happened to him? "He became part of our collection. We always have a use for those who break contracts." Marcus stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the warehouse floor. "But you won't run away, right, Eric? You'll follow the rules, serve your full 3 years, and then make your choice." "What choice?" "The same choice I made 743 years ago, or you won't have a choice at all." He turned to face me, and in that instant I saw his true face, something ancient, patient, utterly inhuman, cloaked in the skin of a middle-aged man. "Leave with your sealed memories and silent tongue. Return to the normal world, or stay. Accept the promotion. Become part of this machine." "Ah, you have an order," he said to me. I glanced at it. There really was one. To the zoo. "I'm back with an update. Nothing major has happened recently except that I've become a father." "No, not in the way you're thinking. I'm not married. This job pretty much makes marriage impossible for me. I'll explain what happened later. Let's get back to where I left off with the delivery." The delivery was scheduled for 4:17 p.m. Location: Moonlight Zoo. Please ask for the manager. The instructions on the pamphlet were surprisingly brief. Arrive after sunset but before midnight. The zoo will appear closed. Please enter through the service gate on the west side. The gate will be unlocked. Proceed directly to the reptile house. Do not stop to observe any enclosures, even if you hear animal sounds. The manager will meet you at the entrance to the reptile house. Hand the items directly to him. The manager may try to engage you in conversation. You may respond politely, but do not accept any offers to tour the zoo. Leave immediately after completing the delivery. Do not look back at the reptile house. Courier SK's note: these are definitely real animals. When I arrived at the zoo at 7:30 p.m., the parking lot was empty. The main gate was locked, but the service gate opened with a gentle push, its rusty hinges silent. The 3 raw steaks I was delivering, each in a thermal bag, seemed to be subtly moving as if still breathing. I tried not to think about it. The small paths in the zoo were lit by old-fashioned gas lamps, casting a bluish-white light. In the enclosures on either side, I saw figures moving, large ones, small ones, and some that moved in ways unlike any animal I'd ever seen. Something that might have been a bear stood on its hind legs, waving many arms at me. Something in the aviary sang in perfect human language. Come closer, we have much to discuss." I kept my eyes straight ahead and quickened my pace. The reptile house was a Victorian-era greenhouse, all glass and iron framework. A woman in a zookeeper's uniform stood at the entrance, the uniform looking like something from the 1920s, khaki shirt, breeches, and tall boots. She was tall and slender, her black hair meticulously pulled back into a bun, and her yellow eyes had vertical pupils. "You must be the delivery person," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like a deflating tire. "Excellent. We've been waiting for dinner." I handed her the bag. 3 steaks, as ordered. "Good." She glanced at the bag, then extended a long, forked tongue and licked the air. "Still warm, still moving? Perfect." She looked at me with those reptilian eyes. "Do you want to see what we feed them? Quite a variety." "No, I have other deliveries to make." "What a shame." She stepped aside, and through the glass wall of the reptile house, I saw things in the cages that were definitely not reptiles. Or if they were reptiles, they were from somewhere else, a place with different anatomical and physical rules. I should go. Of course. She took a steak from the bag and held it up. The steak twitched in her hand, and I realized with a jolt of fear that it was growing new tissue, regenerating. Thankfully, she just grinned, revealing a mouthful of sharp, pointed teeth. "Have a safe trip. Delivery man." I hurried away, the sounds of feeding following me, wet, tearing sounds and satisfied groans, perhaps from the zookeeper, or the animals she was feeding, or the meat itself. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. $198.25 deposited into your account. After the zoo incident, I chose a normal order, a family dinner order, pizza, breadsticks, and salad to 4782 Oakwood Avenue. It was a nice neighborhood, well-maintained houses, minivans in the driveways. The order form was blank. No rules, just the address. This should have alerted me. At 6:45 p.m., I parked in front of the house. Every window was brightly lit. Through the sheer curtains, I saw a family sitting around a dinner table, parents and 2 children. A perfect picture of suburban life. I held the pizza bag in my hand and rang the doorbell. The father opened the door, beaming. "Oh, wonderful. The children are starving. How much is it?" "It's already paid for, sir. I just need your signature." He signed on my phone, John Smith, which should have been another warning sign, and then took the pizza bag. "Would you like to come in? We're about to say grace." "I really should be going." "I insist. It's the least we can do. After all, you brought us dinner." Something in his tone made it sound less like an invitation and more like a plea. I went inside. The house had a strange smell. Not unpleasant, but artificial, like someone had sprayed air freshener on something rotting. The family sitting around the table looked picture perfect, too perfect. Their smiles were just right, their postures impeccable. Even their breathing seemed choreographed. "Levi!" the mother called. "Come and get your pizza." A door opened upstairs, and I heard the patter of small feet on the stairs. Then a child appeared, a boy about 8 years old with brown curly hair and bright green eyes. Except he was walking on all fours. He scampered down the stairs like a dog, then stood upright at the bottom, but his posture was all wrong, his spine curved and stiff, not at all like a human spine. He grinned at me, revealing slightly pointed teeth. "Pizza," he said. His voice sounded normal, like a child's, with the enthusiasm children have for pizza. "Did you order extra cheese?" "Levi, mind your manners," the father said. "Speak in your normal voice." "I am using my normal voice," Levi said, then dropped to all fours again and trotted to the table. He jumped onto a chair and sat down like a dog, his hind legs tucked beneath him. The mother laughed, her laughter like wind chimes. "He's still learning. Kids, you know." I didn't know what to say. The little booklet was blank. There were no rules here. Levi opened the pizza box with his teeth, his hands, which looked remarkably human, apparently just for show, and pulled out a slice. He devoured it messily but happily, like a child should eat pizza. Then he looked at me, tilting his head like a curious puppy. "Are you the delivery guy? The one who goes to those strange places?" Yes. "Cool." He jumped down from the chair, landing on all fours and crawling towards me. "My family are all humans, like you. I miss them sometimes." The parents exchanged a glance. The other two children, I now realized, hadn't moved or said a word, still wearing their perfect smiles. "Levy, don't bother this kind delivery man," the father said. "I'm not bothering him." Levi squatted in front of me, looking up with his unnaturally bright green eyes. "I'm not bothering you, am I?" "No, I don't feel bothered." "Good." He stood up, walking on two legs, which seemed to be a struggle, as if walking on two legs wasn't natural for him. "I want to ask you something. Can you adopt me?" The room fell silent. "Levi," the mother began. "I don't belong here." Levi's voice suddenly became old and sad. "They're not my parents. They're nice, but they're not right. They don't have skin under their faces. They don't eat. They just push the food around on their plates. I'm different from them. I'm something else, something in between." He took my hand with his small, very human-like hand. "You provide a service for beings like me, beings that aren't quite human and not quite something else. You're also in between. I can smell it on you. Gardens, hospitals, castles. You've walked in both worlds, so maybe I can." "Do you want to come with me?" I finished, trembling. He nodded frantically. "Please, I'll be good. I'll follow the rules. I can help with deliveries. I'm very good at sniffing out things people don't want found. Please." The mother, father, and son stood up in unison. Their voices, when they spoke, were jarringly harmonious. "The child has made his request. This is his right and your obligation. Do you accept?" I looked down at Levi, this strange boy, eating pizza, walking on all fours, desperately trying to escape this place. The manual was blank because there were no rules for this situation. I was on my own. "I need to make a call," I said. I went outside and dialed the emergency contact number Marcus had given me, the one for situations not covered in the manual. A woman's voice answered, cold and professional. "Support. What's the problem?" "I'm on a delivery, 4782 Oakwood Avenue. The customer is a child. He wants me to adopt him." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then, "Please hold." Background music came on. I heard a scream in the background, or maybe it was just static. Marcus picked up the phone. "Eric, what exactly did the kid say?" "He said he wants me to adopt him. He said these aren't his real parents. He's somewhere in between." What about the child's parents? Did them say anything? They asked me if I would adopt him. They said it's his right and my obligation. Another silence. I could hear Marcus's slow, steady breathing. This is unusual, but not unprecedented. What does your gut tell you? I looked back at the house. Through the window, I saw Levi sitting on the floor, looking at me with his bright eyes, his tail. When did he grow a tail? Wagging hopefully. My gut tells me he's telling the truth, and that he needs help. Then trust your gut. In this business, instinct is sometimes more important than the rules. Marcus paused. If you accept, he'll be under your care. The company will provide accommodation, and we have facilities specifically for handling special circumstances. But you'll need to take him out on weekends, help him socialize, and teach him how to blend in as a human when necessary. You can think of it as being a foster parent, except this child is a shapeshifter who might accidentally eat you if he gets too excited. But I advise you to accept. That's insane. That's the job. Marcus's smile came through the phone. So what are you going to do? He didn't really give me a choice. I accept. Good. Bring him to the warehouse after the delivery. We'll get a room ready for him. He hung up. I went back inside. Levi was already standing at the door, bouncing with excitement. Really? You said yes? I said yes. He threw his arms around me. They were definitely arms now, hugging my waist so tightly I could barely breathe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be good, I promise. You won't regret it. The child's parents were back at their seats at the dinner table. I watched as their expressions shifted, their features rearranging themselves into different shapes, like someone shuffling a deck of cards. The child is yours now, they said in unison. The contract is fulfilled. The debt is settled. What contract? But they had already turned away, continuing their charade of a family dinner, the other two children still maintaining their perfect smiles. Levi grabbed my hand. It was definitely a hand now, warm and human, and pulled me towards the door. Let's go. Can we get ice cream? Do you have any other pets? Are there other people like me where we're going? Slow down, I said, but a smile involuntarily spread across my face. One question at a time. As we walked towards my car, he chattered incessantly, sometimes walking on two legs, sometimes on four, his posture shifting with his level of excitement. The other people on the street didn't seem to notice anything unusual. Maybe they only saw an ordinary boy. Maybe only people like me, those who have crossed too many boundaries, could perceive this strangeness. After we got in the car, Biscuit, who had been sleeping in the back seat, sat up. He and Levi stared at each other for a long time. Then Levi's tail reappeared, wagging wildly, and Biscuit's tail started wagging too. A dog! You have a dog. I love dogs. Well, sometimes I feel like a dog myself, but I like other dogs too. His name is Biscuit. Biscuit, Levi repeated respectfully. That's a nice name. Can I pet him? Yes. On the way to the warehouse, Levi petted Biscuit and talked to him about the terrible fake family, pizza, and his new life. That's when I glanced at the pocket watch on the passenger seat. The picture had changed again. In the picture, Biscuit, Levi, and I were sitting in a room I didn't recognize at all. We all looked happy. But in the doorway behind us, hidden in the shadows, was that tall figure again. He was watching us, always watching. My phone buzzed. $87.50 deposited into your account. Note, a weekly $200 guardian allowance will be used to care for the dependent. Welcome to foster care, E. Don't mess it up. That last sentence was definitely Marcus's style of humor. The warehouse had some areas I had never been allowed into before. Marcus led us through a series of doors, each marked with symbols that were unsettling to look at, until we came to a corridor that seemed longer than the building's exterior dimensions. Room 13, Marcus said, opening a door. Fitting, isn't it? The room next door was much larger than it should have been, practically a complete apartment with a bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette, and living room. The walls were padded, looking like wallpaper. The view outside the window was definitely not the industrial area where the warehouse was located. Instead, there were mountains, forests, and a night sky with 3 moons. The padding is because he might have episodes, Marcus explained. Shapeshifters his age sometimes lose control when they get emotional. This scenery is meant to make him feel less trapped. He can't actually enter the human world, it's just a projection of his, but it does help. Levi had already started exploring, running around the room, occasionally dropping to all fours in his excitement, his form shifting between that of a boy and something more canine. "What exactly is he?" I asked. "A changeling, half shapeshifters, and by the old definition, a human child taken by a non-human creature, raised between the two worlds until he is neither human nor that thing. But the family you met, they're collectors. They take or buy special children like him and treat them as curiosities, pets, status symbols." Marcus's face darkened. "Calm down. You were right to take him away. Otherwise, he would stay there forever, slowly forgetting what it feels like to be human." "How old is he?" "It's hard to say. Time flows differently for his family. He could be 8, or he could be 80. His body will age, but very slowly, incredibly slowly." Marcus handed me a key. "This place is yours now, too. You can visit him any time, but you need to take him out on weekends, let him socialize, and teach him how to maintain his human form for extended periods. And whatever you do, don't let him near a casino." "Why?" "Shapeshifters are banned from all casinos in this city, and he is under 18. It's a long story. It involves 3 poker games, an ace, and an angry mob boss who still doesn't know he lost to a 10-year-old kid who could see through the cards." Marcus chuckled. "That was actually your father. He agreed to stay, and I wanted to assign him a very important task as a test. But he said he had children at home, so I gave him a regular job. Maybe he was bored, or maybe he was greedy, but he worked with a shapeshifter named Thomas for a while, and they did quite well, until Thomas got too greedy and revealed his true form when he shouldn't have. I haven't seen him since." My heart sank. "My father worked with a shapeshifter." "That's right. This is the debt he owed, and it's the debt you inherited because he's no longer in the system. Thomas belonged to a family, and shapeshifters value family ties. After he disappeared, his family members came looking for him. Your father owed them a life for a life. He tried other solutions, but since he couldn't repay..." Marcus looked at me meaningfully, and there was definitely a large part he wasn't telling me. I could imagine they wouldn't accept the eldest son as collateral. "My initial thought was to fire him. Well, he said he had a son, and his son couldn't be without a father. So sigh. And then he said he wanted to ask me for one last gamble. I haven't encountered such a fun situation in hundreds of years." Most people facing death wouldn't put 20 years of their life on the table for another round. I should have stopped there, but the situation made it hard for me to stop, so I asked him what exactly he was playing. "Ars secreta triplicis. I don't want to explain the specific rules to you. It's a combination of dice and cards. I played it with some leaders at a company retreat. The stakes weren't cash, definitely not. In 700 years, I've never seen a tie. At the time, we gambled 20 years of life, 5 million, and a shapeshifter's tail, which is very useful for navigation. The result was that we played for about a night, and it was a tie 3 times. I've never seen so many ties in 700 years, so My father chose the 5 million, not the 20 years of life, I concluded, stating the obvious. Yes, I chose the shapeshifter's tail. Very useful. Then I told him to take the 5 million and get lost, never to come back. Because I knew the debt wasn't settled yet, it's just that the shapeshifter couldn't take his life. He didn't elaborate further. Okay, so now you've adopted half a shapeshifter, so I guess you don't have to worry about them abandoning unwanted children on your doorstep someday. Are you saying this is destiny? I mean, the universe has its own sense of irony. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Levi will consider you his own. That's how shapeshifters are. They will completely and absolutely bond with a person. You will become his support, his leader, his family. Don't underestimate this trust. If you betray this trust, what? Shapeshifters remember everything, and they live for a very, very long time to plan their revenge. He gave that Cheshire cat grin. Marcus left, and I stood at the door watching Levi explore his new home. He found a pile of plush toys in the bedroom and was arranging them in a circle, talking to each toy in a different voice. Hey, Levi? He looked up, his eyes sparkling. We'll be okay. You and me. I promise. But I wasn't really sure we would be okay, because as I said those words, he smiled in a real sharp teeth. This might be really short this time, because if you've ever taken care of a 7-year-old shape-shifting child, you'd know they're about twice as difficult to handle as a normal child, especially when you're surrounded by anywhere from 1 to 30 ice cream cones while trying to eat ice cream. But I'll try to make it longer next time.